Just literally are everywhere. It's just going up and down, and it's now crossing over towards sort of Rebecca's side. So I want to just try and shoot across towards Rebecca's, see if I pick them up on that side. But there's just tracks. It looks like they were having the best time, mom and cub. They were running up and down after one another, and it seems as though they had a good drink at Treehouse, and then they've carried on north now towards Rebecca's. So I want to just try and shoot around. If nothing on Rebecca's, then we know maybe in this drainage line close by here is where they could be. The tracks look very good. They look nice and fresh and clean, and so I'm hoping that we will be able to find her in this area. So it's at least good news and something that we can work with. But we'll have to just shoot around that side before we can kind of see anything. I don't know if we'll pick them up kind of on that side. I hope we will. It's a long way from where these tracks go in that they look like they might come out, but we'll try our luck anyway. And if they don't come out that side, like I say, then we'll just drive towards the drainage line in the hope that we're able to pick her up somewhere inside there. But the little one has most definitely had an absolute ball this morning. It's, like I say, been all over. Oh, Romit, this is a question that is difficult to answer, because I think unfortunately a lot of the time we just don't even see. But in terms of how many cubs has Shadow had, honestly, I mean, I must have seen her have at least 6 or 7 litters now, and so many would be the answer that I would say. Unfortunately, she just loses. There was a phase where she was losing them within the first month, and then she would, you know, not have them for a month or so, then she would mate, and then she would be 3 months, you know, and she kind of went through this phase where she had a lot of cubs very quickly, and none of them actually survived. So it's difficult to put a finger on exactly how many Shadows had in her lifetime. I really don't know, but I would hazard a guess that she's had more cubs than Karula had, to be honest. I think she's probably had way more, and unfortunately she's just lost a number of them. And the reason why she's been able to have more cubs is because of her ability, well, her sort of poor luck that she's had to be able to not keep these cubs and to be able to not raise them. It means that she spends a lot more time, you know, breeding and actually having cubs, whereas somebody like Karula, every time she has cubs, you know, she's no longer being able to breed for the next 1.5 to 2 years, which slows down the whole process and means that she can only have a certain number in her lifetime. So the answer to that is I don't know, but I would imagine that she's had a fair number. I would at least 16 to 20 cubs, I would say. So it's a lot of cubs that she's had, and unfortunately she's really struggled. But with this cub, she's done quite well, I think. I think this cub is at the age now where it's not fully self-sufficient. It's still very small in comparison to what Shadow is, but it is at least at the age now where it can sort of look after itself. So it's got a situation where it can climb, it can do all of its things, and if she were to kind of leave it now, I think it might be able to survive, in terms of it will be able to at least find food and kind of sustain itself. And it will be difficult, but it would be able to be possible. So at the end of the day, it's almost a year since it's been alive, so it's now, you know, 11 months, and so, or 10 months should I say, and so it's, you know, it's getting to that age where it potentially could survive. Right, we're going to check the tracks on this side and see what's going on. But I believe Scotty D has found some herds of beautiful little antelope that I wish we saw here. So apparently we haven't gone to Scott because, well, apparently there's some sort of technical issue. So gremlins are invading and you're still with me. So we're still obviously going to be going in the direction like I said we would be going, and looking around for any sign of this leopard. It's a difficult place to check because this road is not very sort of wide, and so you can miss tracks quite quickly on it. I find it's not an easy tracking road until you start getting towards closer to Zoe's. Once you get closer to Zoe's, then this road gets much nicer and it's a lot more sort of wider, and the soil is nice and soft, and it's easy to pick up tracks from there. But the good news is that I checked the sort of western boundary and there was no tracks that I found coming out, so they must be here somewhere. It's just a matter of actually locating them and finding them and seeing exactly where they are. The thing is though, is I've also seen a number of antelope species, impalas, duikers, steenboks, spread around all over the place, and they all seem to be fairly relaxed, which means that I don't think a leopard is passed through here right this second. I think it's a situation where we're going to have to do a little bit of looking around. Now we're going to try this one more time, and we're going to try and see if we can actually get away from me and all the way to the Scotty D with his sparring Thompson gazelles.
Apologies, it sounds like we're having one or two little tech issues there. These Thompson's gazelle are going to the toilet for now, but they've also been a little bit playful. There's quite a few in this area, and sadly while you were away there was two chasing one another around, pronking through this open plain. Let's see if they don't do it again. They're adorable little gazelles, the Thompson's gazelles. And quite a few of them have got babies at the moment. The tricky thing is they lie flat down on the ground, and even in an open clearing like this, they blend in incredibly well, so they're very difficult for us to see. But there are quite a few little babies lurking about. It looks like those females still might be pregnant though, so maybe they haven't dropped just yet. As I'm sure you've all gathered, due to the fact that we are no longer with the cheetah, nor is Taylor, we decided that it would probably be best to go and explore and see what else we can find, as opposed to sitting and investing too much time with them. This evening, however, I think we are going to get lucky, and I think it will be worth both of us being with them once they get up and mobile this evening. You saw they showed a little bit of interest in getting a meal this morning, but they weren't quite hungry enough just yet. So maybe by this evening they will launch their next attack. I think it's fair to say that those 5 boys have provided Safari Live with more live kills than any other individual and or group of animals that we've ever spent time with in a very short period of time. They've been incredibly successful. It'd be an interesting stat to work out how many live kills we've actually managed to share with you, with just them. Sadly, a few of them have been in no signal areas. I can think of 2, 3 we didn't manage to broadcast. I mean, just the fact that we've seen them make 3 kills is quite a good thing in such a short space of time. But I'd say we've gone upwards of 10 live epic hunts, some more epic than others. One of my favorites was probably the second kill that they ever made, which was on the first morning we actually ever spent with them. They made 2 kills that morning, one of which was an opportunistic kill of a young wildebeest that was lost, running around alone. And that was the one kill where we just got into such a perfect position and they chased them from quite far straight towards the vehicle, mainly D'Artagnan. Got some incredible footage of that. And then probably my second favorite kill was, or one of a different genre, was when I was teamed up with Ferg. Sadly, again, we couldn't send out the broadcast. I think we had a combination of no signal as well as rain that we're trying to deal with. Driving, lifting up the flaps, filming. It was getting dark. That was the one scene where the one cheetah actually got bowled over by a wildebeest that came back to rescue the youngster that had been brought down. Oh, wonderful. Let's send you off to Taylor. I only got the delayed message now. Sorry, Louise. Did you hear the first message? Yeah.
Well, We haven't actually moved too far away from our musketeer friends. They're only about 500 meters away from us, and I've come towards the animals, and look what we found. Look at that wildebeest. Not walking very well now, is it? Now, it was sitting down, and it stood up. And as he stood up, there's something wrong with his hips. I don't know if he's just stiff, if he's got a bit of arthritis, or what's going on. Maybe he's, was running and he jarred his hip. I know what it feels like when you do something like that. Now, if those musketeers come down this way and they see him, that's the one they're going to go for. They're going to try and single out a weak one. And already, if he's got a problem with his back legs, he's probably going to be quite easy to take down, won't he? But there's lots of them, and for those cheetah to be able to pick out the weak one amongst the herd, that's actually what they specialize in. They want the easiest and the best opportunity of taking some down. That's with all predators. Lions will do the same thing. Leopards will do exactly the same things too. But there they go. But there are so many different animals here. There were a couple of zebra too. They're in and amongst the herd. Not many of them. There is one little foal though that could be on the menu for the cheetah. Just to the left of that fella that's walking towards the wildebeest is one youngster. See, they're standing right up against me. I'm actually trying to have a suckle at the moment. Oh, there's two. In fact, they were completely camouflaged against the other zebras. I didn't see that there were two. And hopefully they do stay quite close to their respective mothers and don't show their size. I think this is the direction that those musketeers will come in, because this is the way the food is going. And it's quite a nice spot here. And the grass is obviously quite short, so they're not really going to be able to stalk, but there's a nice tree line that they could move around in and hide behind that to get a little bit closer. Now, Becca, you're wondering, how often does a prey species kill a predator? I think it's more common than we think. We just don't get to see it all the time. And the number one prey species responsible for killing other animals, I'm going to say, is buffalo, African buffalo. They will take on lions often. I mean, if a big herd of buffalo comes across a pride of sleeping lions, they'll charge at it. They don't necessarily just walk around. There's even a giraffe that you can see just popping out of the back every now and then. You can see his ossicones. Warthogs as well can do some serious damage. I mean, we watched Mvula, who's a male leopard in the Sabi sand. We watched him one day. We sat for 3 hours, and eventually he tried to catch a warthog out of the burrow. And remember the big gash that he ended up getting on his leg from the tusk? He didn't catch the warthog. So warthog could also cause some serious damage. Every single one of these animals out here, the wildebeest, the zebra, they've all got their own way to protect themselves. Obviously, those big buffaloes, look at those horns, very, very sharp edge, and they're so strong. So even if they aren't able to, what they would normally do, use their horns and say hook and throw a lion up into the air, which is the typical thing that they would do. What they can also do is literally put their heads down on the ground and press and crush things with that very, very strong boss. Look at their hooves. Those hooves will trample animals too. And with their sheer size, I mean, that big boy, he probably weighs 800 kilos, somewhere around there. So he's not a small buffalo. The buffalo are very big here in the Mara too. And that could cause huge damage. But even a wildebeest stands a chance of fighting off an inexperienced predator, or even just a predator that makes a wrong move. They will use their horns too. And the same thing goes with impala, with topi, with a number of these different animals. They will try and buck and bronk to throw animals off their backs. So it's not that they aren't able to fight back, it's just that sometimes the predators are a bit more overpowering, especially if they are hunting in groups. It's particularly difficult. Right, I'm going to try and repeat exactly what Louise says, but I'm going to send you back across to Johnny Bravo, who has got a flappy-faced, feathery friend.
Yes, we do have a feathery friend, the Lappet-faced vulture, and isn't this a wonderful close-up view of him or her? Not sure if it's a male. Just taking it easy, relaxing on the top of a gardenia bush, enjoying the view as the clouds float by. Definitely scanning around, and even from a seated position here, with their incredible eyesight, it will be able to see a huge distance, mainly probably looking up into the sky for other vultures descending upon a kill. And then this heavyweight will head in to do the Majority of the feeding on the large chunks of meat. These are the biggest and strongest of the vultures, so often dominate the kills. Wonderful. You wonder how much time they spend sitting around or floating around in the sky waiting for their next meal, and once they've found wherever their restaurant may be, then they often have a very long process of waiting further for the predators to finish off before they can swoop in and do all the kind of finer detailed cleaning up of the carcasses. They finish up all the bits that the predators can't with their little beaks and long necks that can get to areas in between the ribs and the bones, thus making sure not much goes to waste out here. Hello Stanley, ×3. You have mentioned that this bird has got a bill that would be very useful for opening some kind of an apple juice. And yes, opening just about anything. This thing's beak, I'm sure, could open tin cans. Ooh. He's like, oh yeah, that's me. I can do it. Watch this. Awesome. Jeez. This is definitely the most close-up view I've ever had of a lappet-faced vulture's wrinkly head. Well designed for what it does. It can't get too dirty, although those creases and folds you would think would catch quite a lot of dirt, but they seem to do a good enough job keeping themselves clean, and now we've given it a bit of a complex. Now that's why it's decided doing a bit of preening to show that vultures do also take care of their appearance, albeit they're starting on the kind of back foot, especially the lappet-faced. Certainly not the prettiest of vultures. Hello, DeSantis. You'd like to know if vultures have any other predatory birds that give them a hard time? Not that I know of. The only time there's two different occasions that I've heard of vultures being killed by other predators. Oh, I've got the hiccups. One is a jackal that got a hold of one and killed it. Obviously squabbling over a kill, and the squabble got a bit heated. And another interesting scenario was a young leopard that climbed right up to the top of a tree where the vulture was nesting and ate the chick. So possibly that would lead me to think that maybe gymnogenes or African harrier hawks, same bird, just got different names. Times are changing, and so are the birds' names. And African harrier hawks are known for plucking chicks from nests. So maybe, young vultures would be a threat from that kind of a bird. But I don't know of too many other first-hand examples of vultures being attacked by any other predators, be it bird or mammal or reptile. Sadly, their biggest threat in Africa at the moment is that they are used quite widely for medicinal uses. As are a lot of wildlife, and often strange wildlife. In South Africa, some of the tribes believe that if you eat various parts of the vulture, it helps you see into the future because they've got good eyesight. Not that they can see into the future, but that's obviously where the theory comes from. So they are widely used in the medicinal trade, and also they are poisoned quite often in order to get those body parts. And obviously an animal that relies on carcasses for its food becomes very, very easy to poison. So that's one of their main threats, sadly. Not other birds, but us humans. But I guess that's every animal on the planet is most threatened by us, and not other wild animals. Okay, well, I think we're going to leave this guy to continue chilling out here and see what else we get up to. Kenneth, you'd like to know how old can a vulture like this live to in the wild? I'm guessing easily 40 years, maybe even 50. Most large predatory birds or birds of prey do live for long periods of time, in and around 50 years, I'm told. I mean, the fact that it takes a Batsalua 8 years just to get its adult plumage gives you a good idea of how long they take to grow up and mature. Not all birds, they'll all be slightly different, but another bird of prey that you could relate to. Good. Well, it sounds like Tristan is not having any joy finding shadow on his own, so why don't all of you jump on board and start searching and giving him a hand.
Well, indeed, Scotty D, we're battling a little bit with finding her. I'm just bouncing around through this thicket, trying to see. The last track I had was heading in this direction, nothing coming out on the other side, so she must be somewhere in here. It's just about trying to find her, and it's a little like a needle in a haystack story. If you don't really know where to go, it can be quite tough to be able to find her. So I'm just trying to work out where exactly she could potentially have gone with the little one. Coming back up towards, like I say, we've crossed over from Zoe's side, we came all the way along and through, and now I'm just checking around here just to see if there is something that is around, but I don't find any sign of her inside here, so I don't know if maybe they turned and they went a different direction. It might be worth us actually just going down Shabamu in case they turn back south again. It just seems strange because the direction has been north the whole morning. Well, the tracks that we've seen are all heading in a northerly direction, but there's so many antelope species that I've seen in this general vicinity. There's been duikers and steenbok and impalas, and they all look pretty unperturbed by life, and so that generally means a situation that things should be fairly settled and that there isn't a leopard right here. Of course, that might also not be true. They might just be completely oblivious to the fact that there is a leopard around, and they might just be kind of sitting here and thinking that they're safe, but they might not be at all. I don't know though where else to check. I thought we might bump into them somewhere in this drainage section. We might have to just do another loop around and check. I'm pretty much exactly on the pathway that I thought they would take all the way through, so I'm a bit kind of at a loss as to where else to maybe go. Snazzy, you're asking how I would distinguish a shadow's paw print from Tumba's. Well, in this case it's quite easy. Tumba doesn't have a little cub, and so it makes it a lot easier to be able to tell. But the other way to do it is just by the shape of these tracks. Tumba, even though he's a young individual and he's bigger than what Shadow is, his track size, I mean, even though he's a young male, he is bigger than what Shadow is, so his track size is a lot bigger. So if we look at leopard males and females here on this book, this is a male leopard down at the bottom. You'll also notice that his track, or male leopard's track, is very, very, very round, so it has that shape to it. Whereas if you look at the female's track, particularly the hind foot of a female, it's a lot more oval in shape and a lot more elongated. So those kind of things are the way to look at it. But size is a major thing. Even Tumba at his age, his foot is way bigger than what you'd see from the female. Even in this sort of graphic, you can see the male's foot and the female's foot are much larger, and these are reduced sizes. These are not actual sizes of a leopard track, but you'll find that they are very similar. Also, much like the lionesses, very angled side pads for the female, so you can see they kind of angle off. I was talking about this with the lionesses yesterday, and whereas the males is a lot more rounded and much more sort of lobed on the bottom at the and so there's a big difference between those two in that area. Right, now I wonder what we are going to do here. I'm a bit kind of at a loss because Aubrey has checked Shabamu Road. He says nothing there. I don't know. I think that it might be worth just doing Philemon's quickly, checking along there, maybe going up Zoe's again just in case they've come out since we were in the block and we just missed them. That's at least what we're going to have to try and do. I don't really know where else we can go or what else we can do. But you can see the last track that I have is this one right here. It's a very, very small track. It's not easy to see. it kind of just goes straight over the road and into this little section that we're pointing at over here. So I'm going to try and show Senzo where it is. He might have a bit of a tough time seeing it because of its sort of, there's a small stick that is there, so that little stick over there, right next to it is where that little track is going to be. It's very difficult to see it. Just go to the little bit more to the right sense. Just where that stick is there. It's right just below it. So you can see a very small little area there. So that's where the tiny track is going in that direction, which is for the cub. So I think they're still around here somewhere, but we just got to try and make a plan and try and find them in this section. Becca, the youngest leopard cub seen on Djuma currently is this cub. So this is the youngest one that we have at the moment. She's, like I said, about 10 months old now. She was born just after New Year this year, so she's about 10 months, and she is the youngest by far. Hopefully, though, not for very long, because Tundi is pregnant, and so hopefully we're going to see a situation where Tundi is going to give birth fairly shortly, and we're going to have brand new little ones. Yeah, so you were wondering about pregnant females, and there we go. So Tundi is pregnant. We saw her the other day, most definitely round, rotund, looking just as though she is going to give birth at some point. So I'm pretty sure, I would reckon that we're going to see a birth late November, maybe. That's where I think. So 25th, 26th, maybe a little bit later than that, maybe 28th, 29th, I don't know, somewhere around there. It's obviously not an exact science, but that's what I'm calling. Somewhere at the end of November is when she should give birth, which means that we won't see those little ones for the first kind of month or two. We might bump into them here and there if she moves den sites, but generally it's going to be a situation where we're not going to be able to see them. Now you can see a warthog straight in front of me that's just sitting in the shade, and this is very typical of warthogs at this time. There's also, the clouds are now breaking, the sun is coming out, and it's starting to get a little warmer. So there is our warthog just watching us from the shadows, and that's an incredible set of tusks. It looks like a female with massive tusks. That's very cool. Now normally the males have much bigger ones, but that looks like a female. It doesn't look like a male. It's difficult to say though, because from where I am I can't really see. Although, is it a male? Is it a female? Needed just to take another step. There's so much glare this morning. In fact, actually, you know what? Binoculars are the best way forward here, so that I can actually tell if it is a male or female. Either way, it's got very impressive tusks as it's crossing over the road. It is a female. That's incredible. Now, interestingly, with this female, is she's actually got a second set of warts. Now, if you read a lot of books, you'll read that males have the second set of warts around the sort of nose area just behind the tusks, but that female there has actually got them. Now there's also a bird that's just landed that I want to try and show all of you. Hopefully it will stay still. Come on, stay where you are. I think it's going to stay. So it's one of the southern white-crowned shrikes. We see them quite a lot on this broken marula. There it is. A nice, beautiful bird. I like these guys. They seem to have a bit of character to them, and often see them nesting. Now's the time of the year where we should start seeing a few nests of theirs, and they typically nest in quite big trees close to roads. I don't know why close to roads, but they do. I've seen probably more nests for these guys than most other birds, which is really weird. I suppose they do nest anywhere, but it's just a lot of the time you're in close proximity to road areas, which is quite strange. But anyway, off it goes. I'm going to try to catch up with the warthog family, because there's more than just one. Gary, you want us to try and find the woodland kingfisher today, because you bet today would be the day that the kingfishers would arrive. Well, we can most certainly do that. I definitely saw one at Chitwa. It was a fleeting glimpse, but there was definitely one there already. So it doesn't count though until we get it on camera. That's only when it becomes official. And so I'll definitely try, make a plan. I have, obviously, if it's to do with personal bets, I would have to wait until the 6th of November, because that's when I said the woodland kingfisher would be back, and so I would have to be a bit selfish and do that. But I won't won't be, I will definitely try and see if I can find that bird for you today. That's what I think anyway. Right, our Warthog family is all coming out now. They're all sort of plotting and walking around the firebreak area. I think it's the same family we had yesterday afternoon, to be honest. It's not too far from where we saw them, and you can see she looks as though she might be a little on the pregnant side as well. Tummy's starting to swell out. You can see her teats there as well. So it's definitely a female, but you see that extra set of warts is actually there. They're tiny, but they are there. You'll find males would be far bigger than that. There's also, she's donning a new type of earring, which is the oxpecker earring. It's the new trend for Warthog fashion this summer. You know how you get these summer trends, and apparently oxpecker earrings are the way that warthogs are going. But she's got the most incredible tusks for a warthog female. They are massive, 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 and wouldn't want to tangle with her at all. If you were to get close to those, I think you'd know all about it. Now, I thought I just heard an impala snort. No, gone quiet. I thought maybe I heard an impala in the distance, which would have maybe helped us. No, still can't hear it. I'm hoping that it will sort of call again, because if there's impalas alarm calling, then maybe, just maybe, we're going to get a situation where we might be able to find this leopard. It's difficult though, because there's also a few males that for some reason are busy rutting at the moment, or not rutting, but they're chasing each other around. It's not the season for that to be happening, even though we do sometimes have a second rut in South Africa. We seem to be seeing some males going a bit crazy and a bit moggy. Maybe it's the heat that's causing it, and that's why they are sort of snorting and chasing each other around and doing the typical rutting sound. But that sound that I heard just now didn't sound like a rutting impala. It just sounded like one single snort that could potentially mean that it's spotted something. Obviously, it's problem with impalas when it's a single snort like that. Sometimes what happens is they see a little duiker, or they see a little steenbok and it bolting through the grass, and they think that it's maybe a predator, and then they snort, and then they actually get a good look at it and they stop. But I suppose you can't be too careful. Don't you love how these warthogs walk around on their knees like that? It's amazing to watch them as they go along and kind of put their knees to the ground and feed and dig up with their snout and try and find food items all over the place. Now these guys are really relaxed. They can't be the same grouping that I had yesterday. Those guys were in no way going to deal with us. They were very, very, very skittish in comparison, whereas these guys seem to be super, super chilled, which is cool. I always like relaxed warthogs. They tend to be a lot more fun than the other ones. So Nancy, warthog tusks, I mean, they do keep growing. The thing is that they do get worn down, they get chipped, they get broken, particularly in the males. As males fight, they chip pieces off and break them and all kinds of other things. There's also a genetic side to it as well, like elephant tusks. Some are just genetically going to have that DNA that's going to allow them to have bigger tusks than others. It's just the way of the world. It's like us as people. Some people have darker skin, some people have lighter skin, some people are tall, some people are short. You know, that's how it is with tusks as well. Is there is a genetic component to it that will have that gene for larger or smaller tusks. And so they do keep growing though. It's a tooth, effectively a modified tooth. And if you look at something like an elephant or a hippo, they also do have the same thing where it just keeps growing. And in a hippo's case, the grinding up on the other teeth is what helps just to keep them filed down a little bit. In a warthog's case, that you'll find that doesn't really happen, and particularly in a female. And maybe that's why hers are getting so long now, is that she's got the right genes for a long tusk, and as she's going about, because she's not fighting nearly as much as what a male would, she's not wearing them down, and they're getting just longer and more curled all the time. I wonder if there's ever been a case where a warthog has had tusks that grow into its own face. It would be quite interesting. I don't think it's happened, but you never know. There was a picture that used to go around for a while of a massive, massive warthog at Kruger, which had the most ridiculous tusks. And I think I've got a photo of it somewhere. I must just try and look for it somewhere in all of this chaos that is my front seat, because there's jackets and jerseys and blankets and all kinds of things, and I actually can't find anything at this stage. But while the warthogs are busy kind of feeding along, let me see if I can find this picture quickly. It was an amazing thing to see. Massive, massive, massive tusks on this warthog. It almost looked like something prehistoric because of its size of its tusks. Now, whether or not I've still got the picture, I'm not quite sure. think I do. Just need to try and find it. So Josh, you say you're waiting for Shadow to come bursting out the bushes and grab a little bacon snack or a little pork sausage snack. I know, I've also been just sitting here thinking, I wonder if maybe she's not somewhere here just watching these warthogs. We saw with Quarantine yesterday, he was very into watching the warthogs and trying to kind of chase them, and he obviously ate one of them and was still looking for more. So I wonder, maybe, just maybe, we might see that. It would be epic if we did see her come flying out of the bush towards them. There's still, every time I think of warthogs and female leopards, I always think of the Tundi sighting. For some reason, that Tundi sighting just makes me laugh every single time. And for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, Tundi once stalked a warthog on a fire break very similar to this, and she stalked and stalked and stalked, and she managed to get herself right behind the warthog, and then she took her sort of launch and she went towards the warthog, and I think in her mind she was expecting the warthog to run, and it didn't even know she was there, and she kind of ran up and she then skidded towards a stop, and she then put her nose out and kind of sniffed at the warthog and managed to just touch his bum. And the warthog then turned around and must have got the biggest fright of his life as this leopard was staring at him and sniffing his backside, and took off at a rate of knots, leaving Tundi looking completely bewildered by this whole process. It was really very, very funny. I had a good chuckle at that video, and I'll try and find it somewhere so that I can show all of you. But here is the warthog that I was talking about, and look at the size of the tusks on this individual. It's not a great quality picture, but you can see that some tusks on warthogs get absolutely massive. He looks like something out of the prehistoric dinosaur era, but those are huge, and so that's a really, really big individual, and like I say, it was taken near Skukuza in the Kruger National Park, so they do get absolutely massive. Right, I'll try and find the Tundi video because I have it somewhere, and while I do that, let's go back across to Scotty D, who I don't know what Lou said, but I'm sure he's doing something in the Mara.
Well, happy to hear you've been enjoying discussing massive warthogs with Tristan. Listen carefully. I think these are all going to take off. These are yellow-throated sandgrass. They're my favorite sandgrass. They're huge flocks just flown past, and it may take the rest of them with. Very, very pretty sandgrass. And also very large, probably the largest of the sandgrass you get here in Kenya. Wonderful. It's incredible how well they blend in on the ground, where they spend a lot of their time foraging for snacks. Oh, off they go. Listen to them call. They've got such a wonderful call. Wonderful. Now, something else I'd like to show you here is a cute little Thompson's gazelle who's busy suckling from its mother. Now, what I'd be interested to see is once it's finished nursing, I want to see where it lies down so that we can show you how well the little babies blend in. I've been searching for a little baby trying to hide out in the grass, but haven't managed to spot one yet, which is a good testament to how well they can hide as and when they are not with their mother. Their mother tends to leave them hidden, lying down. And hopefully that will happen shortly. Now, something interesting with a lot of young animals is that their mothers need to stimulate them to poop. And that's what she's doing now by licking her baby's bottom. I remember looking after a little baby duiker that was stranded on a friend of mine's farm. And you had to wipe its bottom with wet toilet paper to simulate what this mother is doing over here. I wouldn't be able to hazard a guess as to how old this youngster is, but it certainly is very small. Come on, go and hide yourself and show us how well you can disappear now. Hello, Becca, you'd like to know what is the fastest prey animal? And the gazelles are definitely very quick. So these guys are probably right up there. Topi can also move at high speeds. I think the Topi and the Thompson's gazelle will possibly be two of the fastest antelopes or prey animals in this area. I think the fastest antelope in the world, though, is the pronghorn, which is in America. The wind is beginning to pick up again, hence the camera blowing around as the car shakes from side to side. And it certainly has been some very, very windy weather over the last few weeks. Good, well, we're going to stay with this Thompson's gazelle to try and see where the baby hides out and show you how well it can disappear. And while we do that, we're going to send you to Taylor, who has some animals who are feeling quite playful.
We do. They have been very entertaining for the past 10 minutes. These wildebeest, most of them are males, and they're having a bit of a tussle, but it's not just one of them. They all have a go at each other every now and then. So they lock horns, they go down on their knees. We were watching them yesterday, push and shove. Nothing is too serious. It's just constantly competing for dominance amongst a bachelor herd. Just like boys, sparring, trying to outsprint one another. Who's the strongest, wrestling, just like what young teenage men will do. And so are these wildebeest. And at one point, and I hope they do it again. Now, when we watch wildebeest, whether they walk, trot, or canter and gallop, they don't particularly look too graceful, now do they? Except when they're showing off. It's amazing when they prance around and flick their toes as if they were an elementary level dressage horse, which is quite cool. So I'm really hoping they do that again, because to me that is the most graceful that a wildebeest is when they are performing like that and trying to put on a sort of big act and act all impressive. It is so beautiful. It's one of the few times in my opinion that you'll go, wow, my goodness, that wildebeest is actually a stunning creature. Otherwise, well, we know that they are not the prettiest of the animals out here, but the flies also seem to be getting them today. They're swishing their tail and, of course, well, swinging their heads around, obviously trying to get the spots where their tails can't reach. But luckily they do have very long, wispy tails. I think they actually have some of the nicest tails of all the animals out here. I mean, zebra have got beautiful tails too, but look how long the wildebeest's tails are. See, there's the next set. They're going to copy each other, and they just keep doing it. It's been going on, like I said, for the past 10 minutes, running around and then singing their beautiful tune. And then they get up and they stop and stare and eat, and then one sits down, and it's hysterical. You could sit and you could watch wildebeest for hours and hours. The way that they cavort and play. Come on, flick your toes. Who's going to be the first one? They were all doing it just a minute ago. Come on, go into a trot and trot nicely, please. I really like I'm back on my horse riding days, speaking to my horses when I was lunging them, trying to get them to do an extended trot. Voice command. Nikki, you said it's like watching the wildebeest version of arm wrestling. I suppose it is. And I wish they were in a bigger group, because then it's particularly entertaining. Now it seems to be splitting up. They just can't help themselves, and they circle and they go round and round until one retaliates and decides, okay, let's go. Let's see, they're picking up a bit of speed now. Off they walk. That's just such a beautiful shot. And is that such an iconic African shot with that? We had a little bit of the escarpment in view, and then of course the skyline and the very, very short green grass. That is very Africa. And the clouds. Oh, that's lovely. Amazing, the different colors of blue that you've got there, and the tinges of grey in the clouds. See, the group on the left is still partying, and the group on the right is starting to settle down now. Now, and then you're wondering, why do the wildebeest bother and go all the way down on their knees, when they try to wrestle rather than just standing up. You might find they have a bit more power when they do go down on the ground. Obviously, when buffalo fight too, they pretty much put their heads on quite low down to the ground. And then push and shove each other. Buffalo are a lot more powerful. They've got more muscle in their neck, more in their shoulders, and even their hindquarters to an extent. Wildebeest don't have particularly overdeveloped hindquarters, so maybe they're just not getting enough power from when they push from their hindquarters, and they find that they go down to the knees a little bit more sturdier. Their horns lock for a longer period of time. Manu, that is beautiful. That is very pretty. Now that there's a gap in the clouds too, just illuminating the zebra but keeping the wildebeest in the shadows. So they've settled. But this will go on the whole day, and it will just go on and on and on. They'll continue to keep doing this. There you go, starting up again. The best is when they all start sort of canoeing. But they're not going to do that now. Very nice. Well, we're going to see what else we can find. We're just doing loops around the musketeers, hoping that they're going to wake up, and just checking out all the other animals. Scott has got a little animal that's also trying to bounce around like the wildebeest.
Well, it was a few moments ago, but now it seems like Mom is tending to its youngsters' needs again. And I'm interested to see how long it takes before this youngster lies down, as they are kind of supposed to. Of course, they're allowed to play and run around for short periods, but they do spend the majority of their day hidden, lying flat on the grass, unless they're feeding or being allowed some playtime. So let's see what happens once Mom's finished giving it a clean. Is it actually trying to nurse at the moment? I think it could be. It's just a tricky angle to work out what it's doing. No, it's not trying to nurse. It seems like they're just giving one another some kisses. A tricky angle, unfortunately. Well, hopefully the musketeers do get up. I heard Taylor plans to do a few loops around their general area. Which would be a very pleasant surprise if they did. But if they don't, fear not, because this evening at some point they will get up, and I think we're going to have a great time trying to double team them. So just to have both vehicles in the sighting together. We tried it this morning, but as Taylor arrived, they went to sleep, so not ideal timing, but I think this afternoon our luck will be better. Now, I wonder if these other female Tommies have also got youngsters nearby, and maybe they've already given birth and lost their youngsters. Maybe they haven't given birth just yet. It's hard to tell. I can't tell if they are still pregnant or not. My guess would be that these two in the front are not pregnant, but I'm certainly not a Thompson's Gazelle expert. Haven't spent enough time with them. Come on, little baby Tommy, take us for one little run around. Or are you going to have some more breakfast first? Just more cleaning for now. It's going to be the cleanest baby Thompson's Gazelle in the whole Mara if its mother continues. She's been spending a lot of time tending to a youngster this morning. You know, I wonder every time the youngster walks up to any small bush like that, if it's not planning on plonking itself down in there. There's not a great deal of cover in these open plains, but a small bush like that may provide the necessary cover to disappear. Is this your spot? Is this your hiding place? No? Hi James, you would like to know if the ages of sexual maturity between antelope here and antelope in the Sabi sands differs. For similar species like impala, even though this is the northern subspecies, not the southern subspecies, so it's a bigger impala that you get here, I'm guessing it's going to be very, very similar. And it usually takes males a little bit longer to become sexually mature than females. And I'd be surprised if there was much of a difference between the same species occurring in different wilderness areas. I'm fairly certain it's going to be standard. So Thompson's gazelle here and Thompson's gazelle in other parts of Africa, I'm fairly certain will all gain sexual maturity at a similar age. So I really don't think there's going to be a difference. But most of the animals that you get here are slightly different to the ones down in South Africa. Like I said, the impala that you get here is a slightly different subspecies. And what else do we get that's the same as South Africa? Not too much, by the way, of antelope that are exactly the same here as in Djuma. When are you going to disappear, little baby? We want to show everyone how well you can camouflage yourself even in this very open landscape. But it appears to not be ready to lie down just yet. I guess having spent probably many, many hours bunkered down, keeping dead still, it's probably enjoying its mother's permission to play. Not that it's playing too much now. It did give a little pronking run earlier, which was incredibly cute, and I'm hoping it's going to do it again. There we go. Ah, that was a little bit too much of an hors d'oeuvre. We would like a bit more than that, baby Tommy. That was a tease. Good signs though. Maybe it will decide to get itself into a more playful mood. Come on, take us for a little run. You can see Mom's definitely scanning around quite a lot, just making sure there's no threat sneaking up on them. Alrighty, well I think I'm going to stay with this little Tommy until it decides to either lie down or play again, because I'd love to show you that. And while we do that, we're going to send you back to Tristan to see how he's getting along.
Now, I'm sorry, I don't have any comms. I don't know why. That's probably why, it's because my comms are out. So, I'm sorry, Louise, I don't know why my headphone jack is not in. For some reason it must have just pulled out. I was busy talking to one of the other guides and I don't know why it was out at all. In fact, I didn't even get off the car. I did get off the car. I was busy looking at tracks, that's why. Sorry, Louise, my fault. Anyway, we were discussing a branch in a tree and whether or not it was a bird of prey or not, but it turns out it was just a branch growing there. So it's pretty much that sums up our morning so far, is that it's been a lot of near sightings but nothing really just yet coming out of them. So hopefully our luck will change shortly and we will find this leopard and her cub. They can't be too far from this area and hopefully they will come out. Now I did manage to find that video which I will show you just now of Tundi and the warthog, and so while we kind of carry on towards Treehouse Dam. I believe Scotty D has got a beautiful sighting of Tommy's gazelles having a little play.
Yay! It started! And it's showing us just how fast and nimble it is, even though it is a very, very young little Tommy. Isn't this cool? It's my favorite when they get into this little pronk. Thank you. Literally, as you jumped on board with Tristan, it started. Murphy's Law. I had my mouth filled with a bunch of trail mix, nuts and dried fruit and cranberries and all bits of pieces. But I've managed to clear my mouth and get ready to talk to you, thankfully, as it does exactly what we were hoping it to do. Prance through this beautiful landscape with not a care in the world. Now all you have to do is plonk yourself down, and you would have done a great job for us, little Tommy, showing us your skills, prancing about, as well as showing us your... Now, even though it's still going to be relying heavily on milk, young antelope do start nibbling on vegetation from quite a young age, and it looks like it's busy trying to work out what's tasty and what's not. Well, I'm very, very happy you did get to see it prancing about, and I'm glad we decided to stay. Who knows, maybe it'll give us one more bout of playfulness. Is Mum coming back for some more cleaning already? You're a very good mother. You're doing an incredible job keeping your baby extra, extra clean this morning. She gets a once over every few minutes. I wish I knew how old this youngster was. I'm not even willing to hazard a guess. I just don't know enough about Thompson's gazelle. Hello, OB Farming. You'd like to know if these Tommies and their tails, whether it's a voluntary or involuntary muscle reflex, and I'm fairly certain it's voluntary, so they're deciding to wag their tail. They obviously do decide to wag it quite a lot because they're almost permanently wagging. And I think it's a conscious decision on their behalf. They've got control over it. Okie dokie, well, I think we've done well here, and are gonna continue now and see what else is happening out there. Have a look at how nice this is though. Let me show you our trail mix. So there is macadamia nuts, peanuts, walnuts, cranberries, raisins. It looks like there's a raisin and a sultana. I mean, they seem like the same thing to me. What else am I missing? Some dried apricots. Very nice. Poor old Tristan, though, he doesn't have any food to show you, but I'm hoping he'll be able to find you some animals.
Well, we don't have any animals, but I do have a very funny video that I was going to show you, and I was talking about it earlier with Tundi and the Warthog. So I've kind of scrubbed forward, so to speak, to get a little bit closer, and so Senzo will have a bit of time just to get in there and be able to show you. But it is very entertaining. But basically what happens is Tundi, you can see lying on the bottom left, and the Warthog on the right hand side, and this was just off the Angama Chitwa Torchwood cut line, and they were actually left the sighting about 5 minutes before this happened. And then one of my friends from Angama, Cedric, he managed to get this video. But you can see there's a little warthog feeding away the leopard with the head down. Now it's amazing how this warthog didn't even see her. She just kind of stays nice and flat, and you'll see why I say this video is hilarious in the next 2 seconds. There she goes. And she goes right up to the behind the warthog. There we go, sniffs his bum. Oh, and every time is funny. And you can see the video is shaking because the guide was actually laughing quite a bit. It was absolutely hilarious. So it was quite a funny thing to watch. But that's what I was talking about with warthogs and leopards hunting. I think that warthog got more of a fight than what Tundi did. I wonder if maybe, I was also thinking, is maybe if she got up close and she realized, hang on a second, this thing is much bigger than I actually realized. I don't want to tangle with it, and maybe that's why she stopped. But I just love the fact that she just sniffs his bum, and as that happens, the warthog absolutely gets completely petrified and runs. It's absolutely hilarious. I mean, you wouldn't expect to see that ever. So very funny video. Louise, did you enjoy that one? Sounds like it. Exactly. So Lou is saying to me that it just goes to show just how big warthogs are in comparison to the big cats. And exactly, I mean, it's when you look at that video and you see Tundi in comparison to that massive warthog male, you realize, sure, well, that leopard is not nearly as big as you would think it is in comparison. Ah, there's an orange-breasted bushshrike. Come on, orange-breasted bushshrike, stay in that bush for me so I can see you. Come on. Just trying to spot it. No, don't go away. And there it's flown. Oh, it's okay. It's just in the top there, Senzo. You see it, and the bush willow, the last bush willow in this little clump. It's just up on the left side of the tree. You might be able to see it. So just go straight in from there. There we go. There we go. Should be able to see it somewhere there. There's a bit of movement. Down maybe a little bit for me. Am I seeing in the right place? It's still there. Yes, it is still there. Somewhere in that tree. I just can't see on the monitor. Do we see a bushshrike? Anybody? Louise, can you see a bushshrike? Maybe up a little bit, Sense? No, it's definitely maybe up a little. I can still see it. It's still sitting there, I think. Is it still sitting there? No, maybe it's flown off now. Sorry, Sense. It's difficult to pick it up, but it was in that little bush willow. I think it's unfortunately flown away. Oh well, that's the way it goes. Bushshrikes are like that. They tend to be a little bit on the shy side and a little tough to be able to get on camera. And we've had seriously good luck the other day with a pair of orange-breasted bushshrikes where they sat right out in the open for us, which is a little unusual, but definitely was nice to see at least a glimpse of them. They bring a bit of color into the world for us. Now, I'm still driving around Treehouse Dam in the hope that this leopard somehow gives itself away, pops out somewhere. That was the jackalberry that I checked. I'm just checking all of these big trees. It's amazing though how the tracks are all over the place, and I'll show you now what I'm talking about, although a number of other vehicles unfortunately have driven here now and they've squashed a lot of these tracks. But while I'm here I can be able to just kind of show you why I was saying the tracks go up and down. Hopefully up ahead here nobody's driven since I was there, and that we can actually get a good sort of view of this area, and I'll be able to show you exactly what I mean with their tracks. It's amazing to see. Obviously they're having the best game with each other, and it sometimes does happen where the moms get involved and they play a lot with the little cubs, and there's lots of movement up and down and they really have a good time together. It does sometimes happen, so we'll just try and see. Maybe there's somewhere here, I don't know. I think at the end of the day it would have been better if we'd been on foot. When tracks are up and down like this from a vehicle, is very difficult. When tracks are linear and they're running straight up a road or down a road, it's a lot easier. But when you're on a vehicle and they're doing this, you know, the only real way to find a leopard like this is via foot, and to try and track it back and forth with your feet as it's done, and try and follow foot for foot to be able to work out exactly where she went. Right, now we should be around the tracks now. Philip, it depends on the substrate of the road, and it depends on the busyness of the road, but you're wondering how long it takes for tracks to dissipate or disappear after they've been made, and how long does it take for wind and rain and cars and all the rest to destroy them. Well, it, like I say, depends on the traffic around that area and what vehicles move in that area, and how it all works. But here are the tracks that I was looking at earlier. These are the kind of last tracks that we have, and so I'm just going to try and kind of position so that Senzo can see them a little better over my shoulder. So hopefully from somewhere there, Senz, you should be able to get them. But you'll see that on my right hand side there's tracks that are running up and down. Now I'm going to get out so that I can show you why I say they're running up and down. But effectively we have the tracks going towards Treehouse Dam, which are these tracks over here. So there's a nice little grouping. Now that's for shadow. Those are slightly bigger. That's an adult female leopard sized track that is walking up and down. Now just to the left of that is another track over here, which is the little cub. You can see there are the toes, 1, 2, 3, 4. There is the little back pad that comes back, the 3 pads there. Whereas Shadow's track, you can see, is probably, I would say, toe size bigger, so just the toe length bigger than what those are. So hers are slightly larger. If you compare my hand, that's one of her tracks there, whereas if I put my hand this way, you can see this little track is much smaller. So they were going up, down, up, down. There's tracks for Shadow also coming back up. Unfortunately, a few vehicles drove over them now, so it's not as clear, but these tracks are very, very, very fresh. I mean, they're soft, they're nice and shiny. There's no tracks of anything else over the top of them, so no birds, no doves, no ants, no anything. And so they were here probably first thing this morning. We must have just missed them, and I'm sure they're still in this area. So at least it's a sort of good thing to come looking for this afternoon. If we don't have any luck now, we know this afternoon that they are somewhere around this particular section, which is good. Right, I don't know where else to go and check now. I run out of ideas, really. I think maybe, just maybe, I might meander my way along towards Pangolin Track Elephant Carcass, just in case Shadow maybe went that way. She sometimes can do this. Maybe she left the cub here because there's only the cub's track crossing this part here. Shadow's track doesn't. Seems as though she turns around and comes back down the road. So maybe she's gone towards the Mulawati or something like that, where she's gone to go and just rest for the day, and she'll come back to the cub later this evening. That's potentially what I think has happened. Oh yeah, it's, again, this is a very dependent on area scenario, but you're wondering what the survival rate is between leopard and lion cubs, and like I say, it depends on the area. It depends on a lot of factors. Density of other predators is one of those, food availability, water availability, any harsh conditions that might be around at the time. So you have a situation where that depends. But here in the Sabi Sands, it normally works out, if you average it all out over a couple years and different females, it normally works out at about sort of 1 in every 3 cubs will survive, or 30% of the cubs survive to adulthood. So that's kind of a rough estimate. I mean, it's not always the case. If you look at Shadow, she doesn't have that percentage, but somebody like Kruger has a much higher one, so it balances out to about 30% of the cubs. And lions, pretty similar. They might be a little higher if conditions are good. So in drought conditions, we tend to find that maybe not as extreme as what we saw last year, but in this year where it's a bit drier, that lions should do quite well. The animals get a little bit weaker and it's easier for them to hunt, and they should feed very well. So it just depends on conditions, and like I say, predator density. If lots of hyenas are around, lots of other lions, lots of other leopard, then you find that unfortunately they have a tough time of keeping the cubs alive. So it just depends on those kind of factors. But I can tell you the sun is becoming quite vicious now. All of a sudden it's come out and it's got a little bite to it. There's also a bird that is now taking advantage of the sunshine and riding some thermals. Looks like it might be a Wahlberg's eagle. Yes, a pale form Wahlberg's eagle that is just riding the thermals ever so slightly up higher and higher as it starts to hunt. Now those quellias we saw earlier should really be very careful, because with the Wahlbergs around they're in a little trouble. Now I'm going to carry on, like I say, pangolin track, check down towards maybe Twin Dams, just have a little scratch around. And while I do that, let's go back to Taylor Mac, who's got a whole bunch of vehicles by the sounds of things.
So we've just come across another cat. Looks like it's a cheetah. So we're going to try and figure out who it is in a minute. I'm probably going to need all the help I can get. So who's ready to ID a cheetah? Let's see if we can get a little spot here. Let's just try. Sorry, there's just another vehicle. It's cheetah. I think it's a cheetah. Yes, it's a cheetah. It's laying right up against the shrub. So I just want to get a good angle that we can also see it. Pretty exciting, hey? 6 cheetah one day. It's kind of amazing. I don't want to block it in, so I'm going to give it a bit of space. We're lucky we've got a camera that we can zoom in with. But how great is that? Who are you? Hello, beautiful. I think this is a female. A bit hard to tell from this angle, and of course when it's sitting down. But the fact that it is on its own, typically females are found on their own, but though you can also find males by themselves too. And she's just using the smallest little shrub for a bit of shade. That can't be too comfortable. Hopefully she'll find a more suitable spot, because she's not too far from an area where there's plenty trees. Now, of course, if you do perhaps know who this cheetah is, you can always let us know. Hashtag Safari Live, or you can tell us on the YouTube chat, of course. Just to give you some indication, we're probably about maybe 2.5 miles or so from, maybe not even, yeah, about 2.5 miles or so from the Musketeers, and this cheetah seems to be slightly further south from where those boys were. Maybe that helps, maybe it doesn't help. Like I said, I don't know the cats of this area very well at all, and I don't think I've ever seen this cheetah before. This will be the first time, which is quite nice. I think it is a female. It's so difficult to tell, but I didn't particularly see any obvious bits that make it a male. I mean, it did sort of lift its tail. Sorry, I'm being eaten by flies now, so you're going to hear me trying to swat them. I don't save flies. They decide to sit on my nose and my mouth, then they must, well, it's risky. They take that risk coming towards those areas, and I don't tolerate that. But fast asleep. We're not really actually having, yes, we're having luck in terms of finding these animals, but we keep finding them fast asleep, which is not great. That's not ideally what we want. But who knows? There's lots of Thompson's gazelle around. There were a couple of Grant's gazelle around too, and a few topi that had some youngsters. So for a cheetah on its own, catching something small like that would be ideal. Now, Scott, you're wondering if the cheetah population is increasing or diminishing. You know what? I feel like cheetah have got it in for them. Between cheetah and wild dogs, it's as if nature doesn't want them around anymore, because their populations do well and they start to increase, and then something like a disease will come about and knock the population completely. Or predators, you know, bigger, stronger predators will come through, like lions, and their populations are doing fairly well. They seem to be increasing very slowly, and will take them out. So I'm not even exactly sure how many cheetah are specifically in this area. It's so difficult to try and find a census and accurate ones. I mean, I found all sorts of documents and things from years and years ago, but I'll have to have a look when I get back to camp on some of these cheetah project pages. Just the Wi-Fi doesn't always work very well, which is a bit of a nuisance, so it struggles to open up large PDF files and things like that, which I have very little patience for, sitting and sort of waiting for things like that to open. I mean, I'm impressed. This is the most cheetah I've ever seen in my life. Since I've been here in the Mara, it's exceptional, and it's a particularly good area between here and Tanzania, and specifically the Serengeti. They seem to be pretty good, but I'll have to get some statistics for you to see exactly how much the cheetah population is increasing. But they've got everything against them. The odds are stacked against them, and it makes me so sad. From the hyenas, leopards, lions, I mean, the fact that I've been working in the bush for almost 6 years now, and I've yet to see young cheetah cubs. I mean, isn't that pretty sad? I mean, I know sometimes it's just how it goes. I just keep missing them. You know, you can see things like not see pangolin for 10 years. I know guides who have never seen aardvark before, and I think that they're fairly common. I've seen plenty of them. But the fact that I've never seen young cheetah cubs, I think it's a bit worrying. I thought that in my lifetime, or in my life so far, I would have come across a female with really, really young ones. And we did have an opportunity. I mean, there was that female that Tristan saw now with the 3 sub-adults. Remember, I think we had TV rehearsals at the beginning of the year when those cubs were still quite young, and they were on the Buffelshoek airstrip or somewhere in Buffelshoek, and they spent 3 weeks there. So, you know, I just keep missing them, unfortunately. So it's not that they're not there, but it's not as common as seeing a lion with cubs or things like that. But anyways, we've got her head up again. What are you looking around at? I'm just quickly scanning to see if there's anything obvious that I can see. Everything's pretty far away. I have to move a bit further. Now, Sky, you've asked a question that I have got absolutely no experience in. You're wondering if a male coalition of cheetah have ever accidentally killed a female before. I've never seen it, and like I said, I haven't actually observed a lot of cheetah before. Every sighting that I've had has been so brief, and I think now is my opportunity to really start gaining experience and learning a little bit more. But I wouldn't put it past them, though. Anything can happen. But again, you know, I feel as though out of the cats, cheetah don't always look like they're looking for fights, you know. They seem to be a little bit more on the placid side. That's also because they're not built for fighting. They're built for speed, so they've lost their big, powerful shoulders. You know, they don't have muscle like a lion or a leopard would. They can run away really quickly. So that's their best defense, is to just try and get out of there. They haven't got a very big head. They haven't got particularly large teeth. Their claws are blunt, you know. So for them to have to get into a fight, they're probably going to just get hurt. So I'm sure it has happened. I, however, haven't experienced it, and I haven't really seen any documentaries showing this before. But again, there is so much that we don't know that goes undocumented, and that's what's so exciting about having access to an amazing wilderness area like the Masai Mara National Reserve and the Mara Triangle, and being able to stay out after dark. This is when we're going to see these amazing interactions between these animals that probably not a lot of people have ever documented before. I mean, how was my serval hyena sighting? I would never, I still can't get over that. I would never have even dreamed that up, to see those two species interacting with one another. So it just goes to show anything can really happen. And it's all a learning curve for all of us, and especially me, particularly with cheetah. I know about them from reading books and things like this, but I always say this, in terms of spending time with them, it's the animal that I've had the least experience with, obviously, excluding the rarities like pangolin and aardvark and things like that you don't see on a regular basis. But I'm looking forward to it, and I can't wait to gain my knowledge. I've got my notebook, I've got the musketeers in. I'm going to start adding things and interesting things that they start to do, and start trying to find where Imani and all these other cheetah hang around. I really can't wait to see him on. That I'm going to go back and find one of the local guides and ask them if there has been a sighting of her or where she has last been seen, and maybe we'll, you know, try and find over the next few days, because we're going to be here for until Sunday at least. Maybe we'll even stay a little bit longer. Who knows? I love it this side. The fact that, you know, there's so many animals here. The triangle's particularly quiet. I'm not looking forward to going back. Now, Nikki, wondering if you can have a close-up of her paws so you can have a look at her dew claw. We can try, but unfortunately it's a bit tough. You see, there's quite a bit of grass and shrubbery it's in the way there. But you well can see I've got a bit of glare on my screen. I can't really see at the moment. I'm trying to actually get my jacket to cover so I can see what mine is looking at. Oh, there we go. Oh, she's sat. I'm pretty sure it's a female, though. Let's see what's going on. All the vehicles are starting to come around this way now. I suppose. Oh, by the way, I've been past those musketeers probably about 5 or 6 times. I was just doing loops where we were watching the various wildebeest groups. Flat in the ground. So they're not up to too much. And now the fact that I'm seeing the vehicles actually coming this way, obviously everyone's got a bit sick of watching cats sleep and are going to, you know, try their luck. Obviously everybody wants to have a photo of an animal up and not laying in the ground. There we go. Now's an opportunity to get some good close-ups, check for particular spot patterns on the side of her body. Yeah, it is a beautiful female. She doesn't look young. Probably middle age. What a lovely cat, though. They're interesting looking creatures. Again, to me, I always sit and watch these animals, and some of them just look like they weren't put together very well. They've got such tiny heads, don't you think? In comparison to the rest of their bodies, and such overdeveloped hindquarters. They're amazing. I hope she does move, though. She hasn't got any shade there. Not any shade at all. Now, Judith, who is a new viewer, welcome. How cool that you've got to see so many different cheetah today. You were wondering how fast can a cheetah run? Well, they can reach speeds of just over 70 miles per hour. But what you must remember with cheetah, and the same goes with all the animals, is that you will get some individuals that are quicker than others. It's just how it is. So their speed ranges between 110 and 120 kilometers an hour, depending on the individual. And I suppose if they've got the wind behind them too, that might push them a bit faster. And the terrain, you know, all these different types of things come into play when they are recording speeds of cheetah. So that's why they get such varying sort of amounts. If it's particularly flat or maybe a little bit downhill, you might find they can go a bit quicker. If they're recording the cheetah running uphill, they're probably not going to go as fast. Or if it's a rocky terrain, I don't think it's going to be able to grip on the ground as well. If it was maybe sort of solid grass and not wetland area. So you've got to take all these things into consideration, and then they'll try and get an average. But they're pretty quick. So Judith, how exciting is this? You're gonna be learning with me along the way. I've obviously spent some time with cheetah. I only just recently saw my first hunt from start to finish. I've seen cheetah hunting before, but I've never actually seen them take the prey down, because where I'm from, where Tristan is driving around in the Sabi sand, you've seen how thick it is there. It's so dense. So you would see them take off, and you'd see the prey running, and then they would take it down behind a tree, and by the time you got there, navigated around all the bushes, and they would have already suffocated it. The animal would be dead already. So I only got to see that the other day. It was with an Orobi. Well, no, it was actually a few weeks ago. It was incredible. And where we are now, it is so open and it's so flat that, it's going to be quite difficult to miss a hunt. I mean, you can just see and see and see and see. It's beautiful. Unless you get caught below the horizon, and it's a cheetah running up a slope and then down again. Then, of course, you can. That will most certainly happen. But another one, so Manu and I are going to add this pin to the list, because we're not far around, so we can sort of do loops. Maybe Scott and I can divide ourselves up, and he can come here, or I can go to the Musketeers, or I can come back here to this fine lass, and he can go back to his favorite boys. But I'd like to have a cheetah afternoon, and especially today when it gets a bit cooler. Louise is directing today, says I should just drive a figure of 8 round and round the cheetah. I could do that until one of them gets up and decides to do something. That's why I was hovering around those boys, because there's so much food about. And, you know, wind could just change direction and they could go, okay, right, up we get, let's go. We're going to go and find them. So I don't know if any of you have managed to ID this cheetah. Hopefully you've got enough screenshots and to try and figure out who she is. Very cool. But I think we might leave her. I don't think she looks like she's going to get up to too much, and I don't think she'll go too far if she moves shade. There's some nice trees just behind us, which would be a little bit more suited to her. So we'll go exploring and see what else we can find. But let's jump back into the back of Scott's car and see if he's on his way home, getting ready for breakfast.
Yes, I'm on my way back to camp, and I'm trying to quickly get to Talek Gate. The reason being is that there's a baboon that lives in a troop over there, and him and either his son or his daughter have got matching white legs. It's their back right, maybe it's their back left, one of their back legs is completely white, and it's the most bizarre scene. We initially saw the big male, and then we noticed one of, in all likelihood, his offspring have carried that same gene through. So I'm hoping to try and make it there before the end of the safari this morning. It's just down at the bottom of this hill. And if we do make it there, of course, we need to hope that the baboons are there. Yesterday morning they weren't there. But most days after morning drive, when we pass through, they've midway through their kind of morning forage that brings them into the area of the gate that we enter and exit the reserve from. I'm told you guys had a wonderful tour of Talek yesterday with Taylor. For those of you who weren't lucky enough to enjoy that, you'll have to plead her to go back and take you on the tour of her town. She's actually thinking about running for the elections to become a political figure in Talek town in the future, not just a social figure. Which she currently has quite a reputation of keeping the locals entertained in that town. You'll have to ask her more about exactly what she does to entertain them. Oh, we've got another pronking Tommy chasing Mom. It's going to run out of view quickly though, so off it goes. Let's see if we can't get to the baboons quickly. Hold on, everyone. Whoop, whoop. This jackal, I'm fairly certain, is trying to find a baby Thompson's gazelle. You can see it's panting quite heavily. And jackal are incredibly wily little predators. They'll know at the moment there are a whole bunch of young Thompson's gazelle that they can chase down. They'll use their stamina to run long distances until eventually they're... Oh! Can you believe it? Well. The mother's come back and chased it off. No ways. Against all odds. That young Tommy, but you see, the problem is the jackal's watching it now. And it's going to continue. Yeah, just focus. Let me try and work out where the best place is to go. I'm going to try and keep an eye on that baby Tommy. The mother is chasing the jackal away, though, you'll be glad to know. Look at how crazy this is. The jackal's headed far off. And I can still see that baby Tommy It's made its way quite far away, and look at how fascinating this is. You go, Mom. You're an absolute legend. Keep chasing that jackal. Can you believe this incredible scene? I am fascinated by the fact that the jackal couldn't kill that young Thompson's gazelle, even though it managed to chew on it for quite some time. Let's see if we can't get back up on that ridge. I cannot believe that baby Tommy made it. The jackal was chewing on it. Obviously its jaws just aren't strong enough to dispatch even the tiniest of prey. I guess when they stood up they were almost the same size though. I really wasn't expecting that mother to come back and chase that jackal away. Let's see if I can work out where the jackal's gone. It's going to have its tail between its legs, I'm fairly certain. No immediate sign of where the wily jackal has fled to, but it sure was moving at full tilt trying to get away from that ferocious female Thompson's gazelle who was defending her baby very, very courageously. Jeez. I can't believe that that jackal was chewing on it for quite some time before the mother came in and still managed to get rid of the imposter. What a fascinating scene that was to behold. I'm just trying to scan around now just to make sure there's no further sign of the jackal, but I don't think that jackal is going to hang around after being displaced by the Tommy running for its life. Awesome, awesome stuff. Well, let's just creep a little bit further forward. There's a little bit of a ridge which the jackal may have disappeared behind. Who knows, maybe it took refuge in its burrow. They often live in small burrows or sleep in small burrows, especially if they've got pups. Disappeared somewhere over this ridge here. How interesting was it that we couldn't even see that Thompson's gazelle in such short grass as it nabbed it? Yeah, I wonder where it went. No sign of it here. Maybe it just kept on running out of sight. Oh, there they are. They're lying. It's two jackal lying in the shade underneath that gardenia tree. So the jackal are taking a breather now. All is calm and peaceful. You can just see one of the ears poking up, but there are a pair of them there, and they will probably be spending some time relaxing before trying to find the next Thompson's gazelle. Louise, I can hear you clearly. I can also hear Faith clearly. Well, I think it's time to say goodbye, everyone, because I've had two 1 minute till the end of drive countdowns, and both of which have been at different times, quite a while away. So thanks very much for joining in on the Sunrise Safari. I hope you've enjoyed the action delivered by Tristan, Taylor and myself, and of course all the wild animals that we got to show you. Looking forward to this afternoon's prospects already. I would suggest changing whatever plans you had and joining in, because at least I know for a fact Taylor and I are going to try our best to get some double team action on the Musketeers, and who knows what tricks Tristan has up his sleeve. Either way, I'm sure it's going to be a great one, so make sure you join us, and we will see you all next time. Thank you for following us on these wonderful, wonderful live safaris. Thanks, Louise, for directing. Well done, Jahawi, on camera.